Hello, welcome back, everybody. PayPal and Patreon are down below if you want to support me. Only do so if you actually can. So, the global population has now most likely actually hit and exceeded 8 billion people. Now, you might think you've already heard that it did so in the news back in November of last year, and that's because you did. However, when mainstream news reported on it, they did not report on it based on any actual estimations or data. What they did was they just went to one of the population clock websites, typically Worldometers, this one, and just looked and saw that the number had hit 8 billion and then went on to report the world population as such. Now, the thing about this population clock, and for the most part, all the others, is that it's not taking in any actual data. It's just running on a preset algorithm based on observed patterns that are plugged into it. And particularly with sites like Worldometers, they're not even updated all that often, typically updated once every 5 years, maybe. In terms of all the different population clock websites you can find, the one hosted by the US Census Bureau is the closest one to what's probably most accurate. However, even the US Census Bureau one is still a little bit ahead of itself, as in it's probably a few million people overestimated. The reason for that being, in their case, despite their incredible diligence, as they update theirs yearly, every year, and do so with all the actual various data and numbers that have come in from statistics agencies and monitoring groups across the world. Even despite that, though, it is still only updated yearly, so it can't keep up or keep track live, aka it's not instantaneously factoring in excess deaths, because these are all things that have happened this year since the last update. It has not yet factored in the 50 to 60,000 people that died in that earthquake in Turkey and Syria, the thousands of people who just died in the Afghanistan earthquake, the tens of thousands of additional deaths in Ukraine this year, military on both sides and civilian, all the additional thousands of deaths in Sudan and Israel and Palestine, all the excess thousands of deaths from the flooding in Libya a few weeks ago, and all of the excess ongoing starvation deaths occurring primarily in Ethiopia and Afghanistan, owed primarily to the fact that the Ethiopian government continues to do its best to block any food aid programs from being able to access Tigray and other breakaway regions. And over in Afghanistan, because the Taliban is the Taliban and doesn't cooperate with anyone, so food aid is no longer really able to get to starving people in Afghanistan. But back out to worldometers and any of the other much less accurate, typically overestimated population clocks. Those ones really aren't a good metric to go off of because, like I said, they are just running on algorithms that were programmed into them that are based off of projections. And demographic reality never actually follows the projections. For just one example, you can see here the last decade or so of the number of children born in Ecuador. You can see the, pretty linear line still going downwards that was the projected gradual decrease. And then you can see below that, obviously, the wobbly, more realistic line that is the actual number of births each year. And just to pull a couple other examples for you of where the projections were not the reality, we have Turkey, who was down to between 1.9 and 2 for their fertility rate. And had they followed the general average trend line that had led to that for the last few years prior, they were projected to drop down to around 1.8. However, when their statistics agency released their most recent data for this year, they have shown that their fertility rate actually began dropping faster over the last few years than expected and is closer down towards 1.6 instead of 1.8. And China, who everyone should know by now to be in an absolutely catastrophic demographic situation, over the last several years, they were dropping in births per year by about 1 million each year until this last one, where instead of a million, they only dropped by about 800,000 from 10.4 million births down to 9.6. So the outlook for most projections was that the decrease would be less and less each year until it leveled out. However, it turns out, as their mid-year data was released, that is not the case. It actually looks like they abruptly dropped even more harshly than the prior years. While the past year, the drop was only 800,000 from 10.4 down to 9.6 million births. And with less than 4 million children born in the first half of the year, it's looking more like they're going to drop from 9.6 all the way down to a flat 8. So, yeah, the rough consensus from various agencies and bureaus who actually compile data as it comes in and aren't just running on linear algorithms that are updated once every 5 to 10 years. The general rough consensus is that 8 billion was likely sometime in the second half of this year, with the highest likelihood being sometime right around now or so. And so there you have it. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around and listening. Like, if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't already. PayPal and Patreon are down there if you want to support me. Only do so if you actually can. Or you can watch or listen to any of the other hundreds of episodes I have about all kinds of stuff on the channel. Or you can go subscribe to and watch stuff on my cat's channel. But, anyways, no matter what happens to me, may God bless and protect all of you. And I will see you all around next time.